Hi everyone, my name is Monique and welcome to another episode of Monique's Home. So, the video today is inspired by my best friend, Teacher Kaye of Teacher Kaye Talks. I will link her videos here. So she did a two-part video about the dire effects of screen use, as in her own words, and how it affects language development. And I was thinking about that, watching her videos, and screen time has always been something that's been regulated in our house. And it wasn't because of really me thinking about its effects on my children's language development. I wasn't really thinking about that specifically. I think when Matina was born 8 years ago, it was just, being an educator, and knowing about child development, what I was really thinking more of is that I wanted her to be able to explore more things. I wanted her to read. I wanted her to play and do the things that I used to do when I was younger. Although I did play a little bit of family computer, but most of the time, and I was an only child for 10 years, so I had to entertain myself. I was really doing experiments like mixing flour and water together or making bubbles out of flour and all sorts of things. And I just remember what a beautiful childhood I had to be able to have those explorations. So that was really more of my, I think, mindset when we decided to regulate screen time in the house. So do watch Teacher Kaye's video because it explains a lot more the dire effects of screen time in detail. But so it just got me thinking because yesterday we went to a restaurant and because of what's happening all around the world, we aren't able or we're not allowed to move out of our table. So once we sit down, we can't be walking to another table or walking around. And that tends to happen, when you have younger children. And Raphael, he's 3, more than my other 2 kids. He's a little bit more active. He tends to really want to walk around and move around and get off his seat. But it really wasn't a problem yesterday. And his 2 sisters, Matina and Renee, they're 8 and 6. And I know they're a bit older, but it has always been that way too since they were younger. I never had to use phones or iPads or any type of screen to get them to sit at a restaurant. And I just started thinking about how that came about. Like, what did we do in our family that helped us form that habit? And I said in my title, screen time is a habit. So what did we do to not fall into that habit? And it's not just at restaurants, even at home, that we're able to regulate that. And I will say this because screen time tends to be a subject that's a little bit touchy for a lot of families, that this is in no way a video to shame if your household does use screens in the car rides or in restaurants or at home. We do too. I mean, we like watching movies. We like watching Sugar Rush and Nailed It together with the family, Masked Singer, and all those singing competition shows. So we do use screens. So this is in no way to say that we don't, no way to say that you shouldn't. It's, take it as it is. As you watch a video, take what you want and use what you want, and hopefully there's something that will work for your family. First tip that really worked for our family is to not introduce it at all. So you have a choice, especially when your kids are much younger, you're starting from scratch, like from the very beginning when they're babies, when they're toddlers, then don't even introduce the phone, the iPad, the TV to them until a later age. You are in control of the environment that you create for your child at home, about the situations that they're going to be in. So as much as possible, don't even introduce it. You always have a choice when you're buying materials for your children. It's either you get them an iPad, you get them a phone, or you get them a set of blocks. When you're at a restaurant, you have a choice to either bring your phone with like lots of apps in it, or bring them books or other things that they can manipulate at the table, coloring materials, workbooks that they could do, or puzzles. The latter might take a little bit more of an effort, but again, you are the one creating that environment. So if we don't start them young, if you don't introduce it to them at a younger age, then there's no way for them to even really, grow that desire or want for it because they never had it in the first place. I mean, my kids, Growing up, I never really gave them the iPad or the phones, so it wasn't something that they were looking for. When they got older and they saw their friends with phones, or when friends come over, sometimes they have iPads, they would ask me about it and they would say, how come my friend has this? How come my friend does this? And I would always explain to them, that's their family, this is our family, these are our family rules, and these are the reasons why we have these rules. And we have a conversation about it. But it's not such a burning desire for them to have it because it's not something that they grew up with. Second tip is one of my all-time favorite parenting tools, and that's having a routine in your house. So we've always had a routine since the children were young. It changes from time to time, and it's not to say that it's set in stone. We can be very flexible. But when you think about it, why do we resort to screen times, especially when they're at home? It's because one, they're either not doing anything and they can't think of anything else to do, or two, you need them to be occupied because you're either doing chores or you're having to do work from home. But when you have a routine and your kids know what is expected of them and what they're supposed to be doing at certain times of the day, then there's less of a chance that they're looking for something else to do, because something is already set or planned for them. And it doesn't have to be very specific. For our routine, more sometimes we put in like free play. Not sometimes, we always have free play. But in that time of free play, there's flexibility in a sense that they can choose to play with blocks, they can choose to read, they can choose to, draw, or choose to play with their sand table. But that doesn't include screen time. So I'm able to do other things because my kids know what is expected of them or what they're supposed to do. And I'm able to let them be independent because I don't have to be there all the time, because we've already set boundaries or set limits as to what they can do. Let's say if it's free play, then that doesn't mean that they can go out and play or ride their bikes, because we've already set an expectation. Because if they have to go out and ride their bikes, then that means I have to be with them, and that's not going to allow me to work or to do things at home. So routines also help our children manage their expectations. Among my 3 children, Martina loves watching TV, so she loves watching movies. But because we've already set our routine for the week as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they can't watch TV at all, and they're only allowed to watch Friday nights and Saturdays, then she doesn't keep on asking me from Monday to Thursday if she can watch TV, because she knows when it's allowed and she knows what to expect. And so she gets herself excited. Oh, tomorrow is Friday, I get to watch TV. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, she's not whining, she's not asking for it, she's not bugging me about it, because she knows that she can't, because that's what's been set in our routine. Another thing that really worked for our family is that we encourage our children's interests. And that will only come if you observe your children with intent and you're very purposeful in the things that you do with them and the things that you introduce them to. So from the very beginning, when my kids were younger, I would expose them to a plethora of interests, give them books, give them blocks, and see what they like doing, and really take time to observe and see the differences in my children. And that's what I build on. And I do this because when we encourage an interest and it makes our children feel good, then there's really no need for them to want other things or to search for other things that will give them, fulfillment or give them entertainment, right? And they're also able to build that confidence and that interest that, if you support them in their reading, you get them books, different kinds, you take them to the library or help them with their reading, then they get better at it. They feel better about it. Renee really likes drawing, so I get her watercolor and a lot of, I set up a station where she can help herself to scratch papers, to scraps of fabric or to scraps of cardboard. So she's able to create the things whenever she wants to. So there's no, when she thinks that I'm not doing anything or there's nothing else I can do, then she knows that, I have, art materials that I can use to create something when there's nothing for me to do. Rafael really likes, Play-Doh and sand and cars. So I make sure that I've set up a little space for him to do that, so that when his sisters are, busy studying, then he doesn't have to be watching TV. Or when I'm, working or in a Zoom meeting, then he's otherwise preoccupied playing with his kinetic sand or his Play-Doh. So knowing our children and knowing what interests them other than screen time is really helpful in us encouraging them to engage in other things and to entertain themselves. Another thing that really works for us is having constant conversations with our children. So I was talking about this with a couple of my girlfriends a couple of days ago, I think, and we were talking about, how some cultures would say, like, oh, if you go into that dark cabinet, like a monster will get you. Or if you don't hold my hand when we're walking outside, the policeman might get you. And it's very cultural. The things or the consequences that we give our children, but that's what we call illogical consequences. And it's not very effective, because when they do the thing that you don't want them to do, like when they do go into that cabinet and a monster doesn't get them, then it's not effective. Then they'll just keep on doing it because a monster didn't get them. So what we want to use are logical consequences. So talk about really what happens to our brains, what happens to our bodies when we watch too much TV or when we play video games the whole day. And you can do this even with your younger kids, but talk about what's valuable to them. Like, for example, with Rafael, when he asks me to watch Spider-Man or Avengers and it's not TV day, I would say, well, you know what? If you watch TV or if you choose to watch TV, then there's going to be less time for you and I to play. And that's because I know him, and that's because I know that he likes spending time with me. So that's what we talk about as a consequence. With Matina and Renee, because they're much older, then sometimes we already talk about, the connections in the brain, their language development. I tell them about how, the language used in video games or the language used on TV are pretty much the same things. They're common words that you use in conversations. But when you read books, you're able to see words that are not commonly used. So your vocabulary gets bigger and you become a better writer or become, a better speaker. So those are the types of conversations that I have with them already, because they're much older. But they're real, they're true. So when it does come into effect, once you see them, writing as if they were authors, then you can point it out and say, see, you were able to write this way because you like reading, instead of spending too much time watching TV. Because it's real, it's true, it's something that has really happened or is really a consequence of them not watching too much TV. My last tip would be to anticipate, and I've talked about this in the Gadgets Down video, and it goes hand in hand with your routine. If you know what's going to happen during the week, if you know what's going to happen during, the next day, then you're able to anticipate and plan for it. If you know that you're going to have a big meeting, then make sure you have toys out for your kids to do, activities for them to be occupied with. I remember when Matina and Renee were around 1 and 2, and Russ and I were going, I think, out of town for like maybe 2 days. I literally planned out activities for both of them, and I had it piled up like per date. These are the things that Matina's gonna do. These are the things that Renee's gonna do. Like, let's say December 5, and then this is what's gonna happen December 6. This is what's gonna happen December 7. And I left it with my mom. And why did I do that? Well, because again, like what we said earlier, screen time is a habit, and it happens usually as something to rescue you from, having to keep your kids occupied when you need to do something else. So when something is planned, then it's easier for you to just give it to them to do this, and then you're able to do other things. And this works especially well when you're leaving your kids with somebody else who's not you, if they're not able to think fast on their feet or find ways to entertain your kids, or to, think quickly about what they can give your kids when they need to do something else, when they need to talk to someone on the phone, or, put the dishes in the dishwasher. Then having this plan, setting things out, anticipating what's going to happen will really support them in that. And this will support you too. Like, you can't really, be sure of what happens day to day. You can anticipate it. You kind of have a schedule, but sometimes things just pop up or things just come up. But if you've anticipated it and, created a space in your house where it's easy for you to pull things out to give to your children, when, for example, all of a sudden somebody calls you and you need to be on the phone, it's easy for you to pull out Play-Doh. It's easy for you to pull out kinetic sand. It's easy for you to pull out books. Then it's easy for you to also assign your kids to something that they can do instead of plopping them on the couch in front of the TV. Before we end this video though, I would like to say that it's also very important to be flexible and to be honest with yourself. So sometimes when I have live parenting workshops and I have to engage with parents and answer their questions live, and Russ isn't home to help me manage the kids, then I do let them watch TV so that I can do my workshop. And I'm honest with myself in that, if I let them, play, and I tell them to play or read books while I'm doing this workshop, I know they're still going to come up to me and ask me some things, ask me for food and for snacks and whatnot. And that's not going to work for this particular task. If I were just, doing payroll or something, then I wouldn't need to let them watch TV. They can just be playing, because doing payroll means I can, take a break if they need me. But if I'm at a live meeting and I can't take a break from that, then I tell them it's okay to watch TV. But I offset that during the week. So I say that our regular screen times are Friday and Saturday, but let's say my workshop was on a Thursday, then I say I'm going to let you watch TV now because mommy has to do a workshop, but this means that we can't watch tomorrow anymore. And that just helps me also just lessen the screen time and also just regulate the hours that they're watching TV. And so in that, I'm also very flexible. So be honest with yourself what works and what does not work. It can't be perfect all the time. You can't really, keep at it all the time, especially when an emergency comes up. So that's okay. So don't feel really guilty about, putting them in front of the TV because you need to do something, because that's just how it is. There are days when you need to do that. So we did say that screen time is a habit, but it's not only a habit for your kids, it's also a habit for you. To be honest, it's really much easier to give them the phone when you're in a restaurant, to let them watch TV when you're at home, so you won't be bothered. But and sometimes, you do that, like when you're in a restaurant and they're really wanting to walk around and you just want them to sit down because you're talking to somebody else, and you give them the phone to use. It's a band-aid solution, but you might also fall into the habit of doing that because it will feel easier. Giving them other things to do, building a routine in the beginning, anticipating what's going to happen the next couple of days is a lot of work. To be honest, it hasn't always been this easy, but in the long run, it's so worth it. Like, I invested a lot of that, a lot of planning, a lot of really anticipating, a lot of, lugging a big bag of things for them in a restaurant in the beginning. But now I don't even have to, but they've just gotten into that habit of not having to walk around, of not needing a phone to eat, of not needing an iPad, when they're at home, and there are other things that they can do. So it takes a little bit of work in the beginning, to be honest. I don't want you to think that it magically happens. It's a lot of work. It takes effort, but it's a habit that you build on for them and also for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please do watch Teacher Kaye's video. There's a lot of information there about language development and about the effects of screen time in conjunction to this video. And again, follow me on Instagram at Monique's Home. And we will be starting on the meaning of Christmas crafts and all those character cards by next week. So I hope you can download that at www.moniqueshome.com and join us on Instagram as we do the holiday crafts starting next week. And please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to Monique's Home and this YouTube channel, and to sharing it with friends that can benefit from this information. Thank you again for joining me. I will see you next time. Remember to make every day your own version of extraordinary.